Prevent vehicles with 3 or more unpaid tickets from parking on city streets in any city-owned parking facility or on any other city-owned property. So if one of these cars is found in these areas, the city could boot or tow the vehicle. The meeting starts at
Local area emergency for Los Alamos, Rio Arriba, Sandoval, and Santa Fe counties, until further notice. The following message is transmitted at the request of the New Mexico Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management, in conjunction with the United States Geological Survey. At around 8 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time, concentrations of carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide were confirmed to have been rising to potentially hazardous levels in several counties surrounding the Valles Caldera National Preserve. It is believed these large emissions are caused by the active geothermal features within the preserve, and that all people within 15 miles of the preserve should maintain heightened awareness of their surrounding environment, and prepare for any further order should the event escalate or short-term evacuations be deemed necessary. If you detect the smell of sulfur or a scent similar to that of rotten eggs, and observe dead animals, dying vegetation, or experience eye, nose, and throat irritation, it is advised to evacuate the area promptly. Additionally, if you suspect that you have been exposed to these potentially hazardous gases, it is recommended to contact emergency services at 911 immediately. Stay tuned to local and official media outlets for further information regarding this local area emergency.
Recent news, social media is in a frenzy regarding elevated geothermal activity at the Valles Caldera Preserve, with some fearing a so-called super eruption of the massive dormant volcano. Here we have Dr. Jerry Lee from the United States Geological Survey to clear up some rumors and really explain what truly is going on beneath our feet. Jerry?
Thank you so much for having me, Amber. As for a super eruption of the Valles Caldera, I can almost guarantee you it's not going to happen. Though we've seen elevated geothermal activity in the region, this is by no means even close to an indicator of eruption. This is completely normal, and the likelihood of even a tiny eruption from the caldera is unbelievably unlikely. Understand that while the caldera sits atop a so-called supervolcano, it hasn't produced any of these colossal eruptions in over 1 million years. If this volcano in particular were about to blow, we would see monstrous earthquake swarms, massive ground deformation and inflation, and we're seeing none of that, nor have we ever recorded this type of activity in the caldera since records began. I can truly assure everyone that this is extremely inconsequential activity. If there was truly a catastrophic threat brewing, we would know and everyone would have ample warning. These sorts of things don't just happen overnight.
On the deck when the earthquake hit, talking to a customer, and it felt like the deck gave away underneath me twice.
It kind of at first felt like someone was just jumping upstairs in our storage rooms up there, and then the entire bar just started shaking and glass was flying.
Gosh, so scary, right? The USGS website shows about 7,000 people who reportedly felt the quake.
The following message is transmitted at the request of the Los Alamos County Office of Emergency Management. A disruption of the 911 system in Los Alamos County has occurred following a moderately intense earthquake earlier today. If you have an emergency and cannot get through to 911, call the following telephone number, 505-662-8222. Repeating, if you have an emergency and cannot get through to 911, call the following telephone number, 505-662-8222.
Valles caldera once again, as large and almost continuous earthquake swarms hammer the region. We have Dr. Jerry Lee from the United States Geological Survey back with us again to try and help us understand what's going on. So Dr. Lee, last time you were with us, you stated that the risk of eruption was almost zero and you were extremely confident that no volcanic unrest was ongoing and it was something as simple as an uptick in geothermal activity. After the recent swarms, do you still hold those same beliefs, and is the United States Geological Survey working to try and understand what's going on?
As always, I want to thank you for having me, but to address the earthquake swarms in the region, it's true that we've never recorded this type of activity in the area since records began, but it doesn't mean that this new unrest is volcanic in origin. These earthquakes could be caused by the geothermal unrest seen across the park as water and steam moves through the crust. This isn't necessarily indicative of magma intruding upwards. After all, this happens at Yellowstone multiple times a year. We have large earthquake swarms caused by simple groundwater moving through cracks in the crust. I still hold the opinion that an eruption from the caldera is very unlikely, and people truly shouldn't be worried. As of now, the United States Geological Survey is beginning deployment of a massive array of seismometers, tilt meters, thermal observation cameras, and even satellite surveillance to measure everything in the park. We'll have an answer for this unrest in the coming days, and maybe even hours after analysis. Overall, while this seismic activity is unusual, we must remain calm and gather all the facts before drawing any conclusions.
Now, Dr. Lee, if the caldera were to erupt with the force it erupted with roughly 1 million years ago, what would that look like for the United States?
Well, we're really diving into hypothetical territory here, and these questions really work people up, and I'd prefer not to answer it in depth, but it would be a serious worldwide problem with very far-reaching consequences. This certainly wouldn't just be a United States problem, and we'd be dealing with a sort of catastrophe that hasn't occurred in tens of thousands of years. But again, nobody should be worried about this very far-reaching hypothetical scenario, and the United States government has all sorts of plans in place to mitigate every disaster in the world. Remember that in the event something was really going wrong, everybody in the country would have ample warning.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Lee. We know that people nationwide are very worried.
That is a truck swallowed up in the sinkhole. Crews spent yesterday digging up a separate hole trying to get to the bottom.
Civil danger warning for Los Alamos, Rio Arriba, Sandoval, and Santa Fe counties, until further notice. The following message is transmitted at the request of the New Mexico Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management. Continuous earthquakes have severely damaged underground and overhead transmission lines, crippling the power grid throughout the areas of Llamas Springs, Los Alamos, White Rock, and Santa Fe, as well as compromising the overlying ground, leaving it highly susceptible to cracking and sinkhole formation. A voluntary evacuation order has been issued for the counties of Los Alamos, Rio Arriba, Sandoval, and Santa Fe. This evacuation is not mandatory, however, it is recommended to all citizens of these counties to leave, as power grid failure, sinkhole formation, and building collapse is becoming increasingly likely. Stay tuned to local and official media outlets for further information. Immediate evacuation for the counties of Bernalillo, Los Alamos, McKinley, Mora, Rio Arriba, San Miguel, Sandoval, Santa Fe, and Taos, until further notice. The following message is transmitted at the request of the New Mexico Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management, in conjunction with the United States Geological Survey. Based on a thorough analysis of seismic activity beneath the Valles caldera, it has been confirmed that a significant volcanic eruption may occur within a matter of days to weeks. All residents within a 50-mile radius of the caldera must evacuate immediately. Counties within this 50-mile radius include Bernalillo, Los Alamos, McKinley, Mora, Rio Arriba, San Miguel, Sandoval, Santa Fe, and Taos. If you reside within these counties, evacuate immediately. Repeating, all residents within a 50-mile radius of the caldera must evacuate immediately. Counties within this 50-mile radius include Bernalillo, Los Alamos, McKinley, Mora, Rio Arriba, San Miguel, Sandoval, Santa Fe, and Taos. If you reside within these counties, evacuate immediately. If you do not evacuate, you may face certain death. Emergency services cannot assist you in the event you do not evacuate.
So, Dr. Lee, following these recent and very disturbing discoveries by the United States Geological Survey, is the caldera going to erupt? I mean, really, what kind of situation are we looking at here? And if it does, what does that look like for the world?
Well, technically, there's a possibility it may not erupt at all, as not all intrusions of magma erupt onto the surface. But unfortunately, given the rapid uplift, that doesn't seem very possible. It's hard to gauge exactly how large a volcanic eruption will be, but given the caldera's long history of rather explosive eruptions and how much magma is intruding into the crust, we can say that a series of large eruptions is likely, like the equivalent of, say, Mount St. Helens erupting dozens of times on the surface. What's particularly worrying about this, though, and what's been seen in supercomputer simulations, is the possibility that this weakens the crust above the magma chamber, leading to an unbelievably large and new caldera-forming eruption. This would be the super eruption we've been talking about for a few weeks now. As for the effects worldwide, an eruption this size would release so much ash and sulfate aerosols into the atmosphere that it would block out a large portion of the sun's energy for years to come. This would lead to a 3 degrees Celsius, or roughly 37 degree Fahrenheit drop across the northern hemisphere. I mean, we're talking about an almost permanent winter for potentially years. Agriculture worldwide will be totally crippled, livestock will perish, and given the abundance of ash in the atmosphere in the first few weeks, most water sources will be thoroughly contaminated. To call this a catastrophe is an understatement. We're going to see mass starvation, a collapse of unstable nations, wars over limited resources, total blackouts, a complete halt of air travel. I mean, seriously, the worst things you can imagine. Now we hope we don't see this kind of eruption, and it's possible that we don't, but people need to prepare now. Official evacuation guidelines are 50 miles around the caldera, and I know I have no authority to issue evacuations, but if I was making the decision, everyone within 400 or so miles needs to leave immediately. Heavy ashfall will leave these people stranded and suffocating within the first few days of eruption, and unfortunately not even the government could help them.
Well, Dr. Lee, I'm sure the government has some methods of helping those stranded or stuck, right? And what about our agricultural production? Will we be okay?
I'm afraid not. Volcanic ash isn't like ash from your backyard campfire. It's pieces of razor-sharp glass and rock. Any airplane or helicopter engine would be completely shredded flying through this stuff. The federal government would be able to help eventually, but by that time it might be too late. And our agriculture will be hit the hardest, as the eruption is in our country. The ash will fall onto our livestock and plants, killing them all, and the blocked-out sun will kill any vegetation that relies on photosynthesis. I'm not sure what can be done, and in all honesty, I'm kind of hopeless about this whole ordeal.
volcano warning for the states of Arizona, Colorado, Kansas, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Texas, Utah, and Wyoming. This is an extremely life-threatening situation. All persons within 150 miles of the Valles Caldera must evacuate immediately. The following message is transmitted at the request of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, in conjunction with the United States Geological Survey. At approximately 2:30 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time, the Valles Caldera unleashed a series of explosive eruptions, rupturing several vents on the caldera floor. As this catastrophic event unfolds, we anticipate several more extremely powerful eruptions to occur within the coming hours to days. These eruptions are expected to significantly destabilize the crust, culminating in a final and exceptionally violent caldera-forming eruption. We urge all individuals within a 150-mile radius of the caldera to evacuate immediately. The impending danger includes a series of pyroclastic flows, which are dense, destructive masses of scorching ash, lava fragments, and gases that erupt explosively from a volcano. These flows have the potential to travel at speeds of up to 400 miles per hour and are likely to incinerate everything within this zone. If you are within a 350-mile radius of the caldera, we advise you to prepare for the explosive shock wave. Find a sturdy structure, move away from windows, and if possible, seek shelter underground. To protect yourself from the potential rupturing of your eardrums, it is essential to wear protective ear coverings, such as earplugs, headphones, or to cover your ears with your hands. Please take immediate action to ensure your safety and the safety of those around you. FEMA and nationwide emergency services will have tremendous difficulty with search and rescue efforts within the coming days, as heavy ashfall will prevent land and air travel for potentially weeks. Your country stands with you during these difficult times. May God bless America, and grant us the strength and resilience to overcome this adversity together.
Spewing ash and lava. Experts warning an explosive eruption could be days, even hours away, and worse than the initial blast over the weekend, shooting plumes of ash.
Please stand by. Please stand by. We interrupt our programming. This is a national emergency. Important instructions will follow. As anticipated, at 9:36 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time, the Valles Caldera has produced what is likely a final and extraordinarily violent eruption. This final eruptive phase may last for several more weeks, as even more volcanic ash will be vented into the atmosphere. The ash cloud from these continuous eruptions has engulfed the entire contiguous United States, including portions of Canada and Mexico. The volcanic ash and gases released can cause respiratory issues, eye irritation, and other health problems, especially for individuals with pre-existing respiratory conditions. While the ash cloud is expected to clear within weeks after the eruption ends, volcanic gases that have accumulated in the atmosphere will likely stay in place for years to come. These gases will have significant implications for the climate and environment on a global scale. The high concentration of these volcanic gases, particularly sulfur dioxide, can lead to the formation of aerosols in the stratosphere, which can reflect sunlight and cause a cooling effect on the Earth's surface. This phenomenon is known as a volcanic winter.
The global climate is expected to experience a temporary cooling period. This cooling effect can disrupt weather patterns, leading to altered precipitation patterns and detrimental effects on agricultural productivity worldwide. Efforts to mitigate the impacts of this unprecedented event will be crucial. It's important to manage and conserve all available resources, including food and clean drinking water, as their availability cannot be guaranteed in the months ahead. FEMA and nationwide emergency services will continue to have tremendous difficulty in search and rescue efforts for weeks to come. Remember, we are all in this together. Let us support one another as we navigate through these challenging times. Together, we can overcome the obstacles that lie ahead and emerge stronger as a nation. May God bless America, and may our collective resilience guide us towards a brighter future.